Earn your GED diploma and begin your brighter future.
Welcome back. A lot of Republicans aren't happy about this, but President Obama is going to go before an MTV audience in Washington later today. MTV says, look, he's the president. He's not on the ballot, so it's not political. But, of course, young voters stormed onto the political scene in 2008, giving Obama a big edge. And Democrats have made no secret. They need those voters in November. So what's all the fighting about? Well, Richard Louie got inside of all the numbers to take a look at the younger generation's impact on the polls. Interesting stuff, Richard.
Yeah, it's a storyline that you covered back in 2008. We look at it again today, Chris, in 2010. Unfortunately here, if you look at some of the numbers, history is working against the president in his push to mobilize the youth vote to support Democrats. And this is why youth voters go to the polls during midterm years about half as often. You add to that an AP MTV poll we got this morning show how youth approve of the president's job. You can see in May 2009, 60% approve, 15% do not. That goes down to September 2010. You can see the two different numbers. And Chris, when you look at these numbers, what I'm noticing is how this is narrowing. This gap from which is about 45 points down to about 17. It'd be different if they're both trending down, but they're coming together. So that's got to be one of the considerations when we take a look at this data. However, President Obama is not like previous presidents. 2008 was a standout, certainly when it comes to a presidential candidate mobilizing the youth vote, and it might be because candidate Obama got them to think. As simple as that. This trend line we have right here from Gallup shows how much thought, basically think time, that youth gave in elections over the past 16 years. And in 2008, boy, he got a lot. Look at this. Think time, 75% of the youth vote. Now the challenge is to get them to do that very same thing today. And what we did is want to get a sense of whether they were thinking. I asked some voters, young voters, what they thought.
I want to hear a plan of action. I don't want to hear that everything is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. I want to hear this is wrong and this is how we're going to fix it.
I'm really concerned about, when I get out of college, am I going to have a job in the future?
I actually think my friends aren't really voting. It's almost like I say those things you want to do. Like, I wish I knew more, and I wish I was more knowledgeable and educated in it, but I'm not.
All I'm saying, they were going to vote, but this is an indicator perhaps of how inspired or not this category of young voters are, seen often as people underneath the age of 30. And the president here trying to tap into the inspiration of 2008 into 2010. Here, Chris, that desire to help him to get people to say, hey, what you wanted me to get done in 2008, I still need your help today. He's got to get that message across.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens this afternoon. In the meantime, we wanted to know exactly what's on the minds of some young voters, so we brought in some politically active college students. We dragged them out of bed early this morning, got them here from some long distances. Emma Elman-Golan is the president of Penn Democrats. John Manthea is the president of the Fordham University College Republicans. Christopher Munden is the president of the College Democrats of Boston College. So, John, you're outnumbered.
It's all right.
But I'm going to start with you. What's it going to take this election season? I'll tell you, since I was your age, since I was in college, and I was in the middle of it, I thought, oh, we're energized, and the numbers were always poor, really until Barack Obama. Now we see them going down again. What's it going to take to get people involved?
I think it's probably just raising awareness. This year's an election year. It's a midterm election year, so it's more localized rather than an Obama or a presidential election where it's it's more movement.
So college students aren't really tuned into who their local congressman is going to be?
It's hard to get people involved into that. But I think that this year, particularly with the Tea Party, people are becoming more, at least, aware of their local politicians.
Emma, do you find what's happening with older voters, which is there's this enthusiasm gap? People who are so excited about Barack Obama in 2008, frankly, the way the economy has been going, the way they see their future going, they're just not that interested. They maybe don't want to vote for the Republicans, but they're not going to go out there and vote at all.
I don't think that this is any different from any normal difference between a midterm election and a presidential year. I mean, we always see a lower voter turnout in a midterm year. But I don't see the enthusiasm gap the same way that it's been publicized.
So you think actually students on your campus are excited, politically active?
Yeah, I mean
what kinds of things are going on at Penn that make you say that?
Well, we do canvassing every week. We do phone banking every week. We've brought in a lot of candidates to come speak to students and talk about elections, and our canvassing numbers have been going up every single week. We started out getting maybe 5 or 6 people, and now we're up to maybe about 20. So it's a really big difference.
Chris, what's going on at BC?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, there really isn't an enthusiasm gap at BC. Last night we just had 30 people phone banking for Governor Patrick and Dan Malloy in Connecticut, and this weekend we're actually going to be spending the entire weekend in Plymouth canvassing for the congressional candidate there.
But you see the numbers, and I mean, polls can be off, but generally for stuff like this, they're not very far off. If you think that it is hard in places maybe where you're not, or maybe outside of your circle, because you obviously operate within very political circles, so it can be a little bit skewed. What's it going to take? What, if you're just sitting around having a beer, what is it that folks your age, John, are talking about?
I think that a lot of the worry, especially among the upperclassmen at my school, is the job market.
Yeah, where am I going to get a job?
Right. So the economy, also the debt seems to be something that at least we're talking about. We had a debate last week, and the debt came up, and it was an issue that a lot of people raised questions about. So I think that these issues that are going to become generational are starting to be ones that, people our age are starting to, wake up to, especially for entitlement programs and things like that, where we're going to have to pay for them.
So MTV is already asking people to Twitter questions. He's going to take questions from the audience. Barack Obama, invitation only, obviously, but then also they're going to put out there a lot of Twitter questions. If you were going to speak for the Penn Democrats, what question would you want to ask them, Emma?
Ask Barack Obama.
Ask Barack Obama.
I think he's doing a great job. I think, honestly, his biggest problem is that he hasn't communicated well enough all of the achievements. I mean, when we look at financial regulation, the stimulus, healthcare reform, student loan reform, credit card reform, small business lending, there's so many things that he's accomplished. And, I would basically say, what I need is, how can we communicate this to voters more?
Here's one question for Barack Obama.
Well, I would ask him to draw a sharper contrast. I would ask him, what do students have to lose if the Republicans take over Congress? And hopefully
he's been listening to you. Apparently, that's exactly what they're going to do. They're putting out a new TV ad. It lists all the things that they say will be lost if the Republicans take over Congress. So maybe you're onto something. Chris, John, Emma, we do thank you for getting up, and we're going to be talking more to them a little bit later on. Well, new questions today about whether a U.S. Navy SEAL's grenade killed a British aid worker in Afghanistan in a rescue mission gone bad. The case is so touchy, General David Petraeus is addressing this head-on today in England.
Time for the Your Business Entrepreneur of the Week. Ron Benaghi owns the 100